The wind whispers across the barren red dust of Oak Park Station, carrying with it the stillness of a land too vast to be tamed. Shadows stretch long and thin across the homestead, the sun sinking low, casting an orange glow over the quiet corrals and the skeletal outlines of distant gum trees. Somewhere in the distance, the faint bleat of sheep punctuates the silence. It is a silence that has grown heavy over the past 2 months, a silence that holds a mystery no one has been able to solve. A small boy vanished here, not in a forest where searchers would expect footprints, not in a bustling town where witnesses might have seen him, but in this isolated, dust-swept land, where the horizon seems to stretch forever. How does a 5-year-old disappear without a trace? How can the winds carry nothing but questions, leaving the people who loved him with a quiet, haunting emptiness? If you're passionate about uncovering real, unsolved mysteries, like share, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from, and what you think really happened. Oak Park Station, a remote sheep property in South Australia, stretches across hundreds of kilometres of dust and bushland, far from the nearest highway, far from the bustle of the city. It is here, in the late afternoon of September 27th, that little Gus Lamont was last seen. He was just 5 years old, full of energy, playing on a mound of sand outside the family homestead, unaware of the forces that would soon cast his life into uncertainty. By evening, Gus was gone. Not a whisper of his presence remained beyond the faintest traces in the dust. The local community, close-knit and accustomed to the rhythm of rural life, was left stunned. Friends and neighbours spoke in quiet tones, uncertain whether to hope or to fear. The terrain here is deceptive, gentle at a distance, but hiding gullies, dry creeks, and deep dust paths that could conceal the faintest evidence of movement. Authorities, family, and neighbours converged in a desperate attempt to understand what had happened. The isolation that once offered peace now amplified every unanswered question. How could a child vanish so completely from this land? How had the ordinary become extraordinary, and the everyday transformed into a scene of growing dread? The weight of grief hung over the property, silent and suffocating. And for every question asked, there seemed only to be another waiting in its place, an unspoken echo in the vast, empty landscape. Gus Lamont's world was small, yet full of routine. Mornings on the sheep station, afternoons playing in the dust and sand, evenings marked by the fading sun over Oak Park Station. His family, parents Josh Lamont and Jessica Murray, grandparents Shannon and Josie Murray, carried the weight of generations, rooted to the land with a sense of quiet resilience. Yet, beneath this surface of routine and care, there were subtle complexities that shaped the environment around him. On that September afternoon, Gus's grandmother, Shannon Murray, was the last to see him. He was playing near the homestead, absorbed in his small adventures, unaware of the wider world beyond the property's boundary. By 5:30 p.m, when she called him to return inside, Gus was gone. No sounds of a struggle, no signs of forced entry, just silence. The family has been largely private since that day. Communications with the media have been limited, defensive, and tense. Most recently, an unannounced reporter was met with hostility, a shotgun brandished as a warning. The household's quiet defensiveness has fueled speculation, but it is a human reaction as much as it is mysterious. A protective instinct in a landscape where trust is earned and privacy is sacred. Understanding the family's position is crucial. This is not just a missing child, it is a disruption to a lineage, a challenge to a carefully maintained rhythm of life, and a grief that is both intimate and public. The circumstances surrounding Gus's disappearance are layered with ordinary life, human emotion, and the extraordinary silence that followed. On the afternoon of September 27th, 5-year-old Gus Lamont was playing near the sand mounds outside the family homestead at Oak Park Station. The sun was low but still warm over the vast expanse of land, the wind carrying dust across the paddocks, shadows stretching long across the sheep pens. It was a typical day on the remote property. Quiet, open, isolated. By 5:30 p.m, when his grandmother Shannon called for him to return, Gus was nowhere to be seen. No footprints beyond a single lone print found later less than a kilometre from the homestead. No clothing or personal items left behind. the vast, open terrain, the remote homestead, and the dust-laden roads all conspired to erase immediate evidence. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Initial reactions were swift, but constrained by circumstance. South Australia Police and emergency services arrived promptly, establishing a search within a 2-kilometre radius. The terrain was challenging: soft sand, sparse vegetation, and rolling hills that could hide a small child's movements. The vast openness provided few obstacles to a wandering child, but also left little trace of his passage. By the 6th day, the search radius had been widened to 5 kilometres, then later to 8. Yet even with drones, air surveillance, and ground teams scouring every accessible area, nothing tangible emerged. Waterways were drained, vegetation combed, and yet Gus remained absent. Wildlife, environmental hazards, or accidental wandering seemed plausible on paper, but offered no conclusive evidence. No tracks, no scent trails, no eyewitness accounts, just questions. The passage of time only deepened the mystery. Each hour stretched the likelihood of finding Gus alive. Yet each day added layers to the unanswered questions. Why had there been no sound? No signs of a struggle? Why did the landscape remain, in its eerie stillness, untouched by the presence of the missing child? The disappearance was not simply a child gone missing. It was the quiet unravelling of normalcy, a puzzle set against the vast, unyielding Australian outback. Once the alarm was raised, multiple agencies mobilised. South Australia Police led the operation, supported by the State Emergency Service, the Australian Defence Force, and specialised search and rescue teams. Drones swept the property from above, scanning paddocks, sand mounds, and distant bushland, while ground teams combed the terrain systematically. Initially, the search focused within a 2-kilometre radius of the homestead, the area assumed most likely for a wandering child. However, as days passed, doubts emerged. Expert searcher Ken Gamble noted that children of Gus's age, especially energetic ones, could travel further than anticipated. By not launching a broader grid-based search immediately, potential avenues may have been missed. 6 days later, authorities expanded the search radius to 5 kilometres, eventually widening it further to 8. Waterways were drained, including a nearby dam roughly 600 metres from the homestead, where 3.2 million litres of water were examined for any trace of the boy. Vegetation was cleared, soil probed, and aerial footage reviewed, yet each effort yielded no significant findings. Procedural reviews were conducted. 2 independent assessments evaluated whether search methods could have been improved. Both confirmed that initial decisions reflected expert guidance on survivability and terrain challenges, but suggested opportunities for enhanced coordination and coverage. No explicit criticism of the teams was issued, but the void of evidence remained striking. Physical evidence was minimal. The lone footprint discovered in the dust provided the only tangible clue to Gus's movements. Yet, even that footprint's connection to him was debated and inconclusive. No clothing, toys, or belongings were found. The absence of tracks on dirt roads leading from the property suggested either extreme care in movement or the intervention of an external factor that left no trace. Community volunteers joined in, combing the vast landscapes, checking disused mine shafts, gullies, and hidden recesses. Still, despite widespread effort, the search produced no leads beyond the singular footprint. The combination of remote terrain, the passage of time, and the lack of physical clues contributed to a chilling sense of impossibility. How could a child disappear in such a populated yet isolated environment without a trace? Each unanswered question became a thread in a growing tapestry of uncertainty. Was it a case of wandering, misadventure, or something more concealed? Could human error in early search planning have cost precious time? Or had the landscape itself swallowed all evidence of the boy? As the search continued in vain, speculation naturally grew. But in this case, speculation must be separated from fact. Several plausible scenarios emerge, each grounded in the known circumstances, geography, and human behaviour. 1. Accidental wandering. One theory is that Gus wandered off on his own. At 4 years old, children can be surprisingly capable, climbing or running across uneven terrain. Yet several factors challenge this idea. The homestead sits on an isolated sheep station, surrounded by dust roads and bushland. By 5:30 p.m, light was fading, and the terrain, though familiar, is unforgiving. No additional footprints, signs of passage, or traces were found beyond the single footprint. Could a child of Gus's age truly navigate such distance alone without leaving further evidence? 2. Environmental hazards. Australia's rural landscape holds inherent dangers: waterholes, disused mine shafts, sudden drops, and wild animals. Searches of nearby dams and creeks revealed nothing. Local wildlife such as dingoes or feral pigs were considered, yet the evidence does not support an attack. The dog fence, low dingo population, and absence of struggle marks make this scenario increasingly unlikely. Still, the question lingers. Could an environmental accident have occurred undetected? 3. Abduction by a stranger. The possibility of an external abduction is often raised. Topography and distance challenge this theory. To reach the nearest major road, Gus would have needed to traverse approximately 30 kilometres. There were no unusual vehicle tracks, no reported witnesses, and the dog on the property did not bark at uninvited visitors. Could a stranger have operated with such precision, leaving no trace in broad daylight? The likelihood is low, yet it cannot be entirely dismissed. 4. Family-related possibilities. The role of the immediate household has also been questioned, though authorities insist there is no evidence implicating family members. Observations of family behaviour, refusal to engage with media, tense confrontations, and guarded interactions have fueled public curiosity. Psychologically, unusual reactions can stem from grief, trauma, or stress rather than culpability. Could someone responsible for his care have misjudged circumstances or struggled with supervision? And if so, what does that mean for understanding the boy's disappearance? Each theory intersects with gaps in evidence and human behaviour. None fully accounts for the lack of physical traces, the single footprint, or the complete disappearance. The narrative remains fractured, a collection of possibilities tied together by unanswered questions rather than certainty. Even with extensive searches, some elements of Gus Lamont's disappearance remain puzzling, raising questions that continue to haunt investigators and the public alike. 1. The lone footprint. One of the most striking anomalies is the single footprint found less than a kilometre from the homestead. Could it truly belong to Gus? If so, how did it get there? The surrounding dust and terrain should have captured multiple traces of movement, yet none were observed. Was this footprint evidence of movement? Or might it have been displaced, intentionally or unintentionally, by some other factor? 2. Family silence and media confrontation. The family's refusal to engage publicly adds to the mystery. Media attempts to gather statements were met with anger, confrontation, and even threats. The dog on the property, notably silent during these events, raises further curiosity. What does such behaviour suggest about daily routines, supervision, or awareness of unusual activity? 3. Search decisions and timing. The official search initially focused on a 2-kilometre radius, later reduced before expanding again. Experts have suggested that Gus's mobility may have been underestimated. Were early search parameters too limited? Could key evidence have been missed in those critical first days? 4. Environmental contradictions. Despite extensive search efforts, including drones, water draining, and air sweeps, no additional signs of Gus were found. Why did the terrain, usually rich in traces and footprints, reveal so little? Was this an unusual coincidence, or does it point toward a scenario beyond simple wandering? 5. Conflicting narratives. Eyewitness accounts, family reports, and media coverage present a fragmented picture. The timeline surrounding Gus's last known moments, playing in sand, missing by 5:30 p.m, leaves gaps. How reliable are these accounts? And how much do uncertainties compound the difficulty of reconstruction? Each of these red flags does not imply wrongdoing, nor does it offer definitive answers. They are puzzle pieces, inviting careful consideration, measured reflection, and ongoing investigation. The disappearance of Gus Lamont captured attention far beyond his remote homestead, drawing intense media scrutiny and public speculation. News outlets circulated updates, videos, and interviews, each piece of coverage shaping perceptions and sometimes amplifying uncertainty. 1. Reporter confrontations. Attempts to engage the family, including on-site interviews, were met with hostility. A Daily Mail reporter was chased from the property, confronted with a pump-action shotgun, and verbally rebuffed. This stark encounter was widely circulated online, feeding public fascination. But beneath the drama, it also illustrates the family's desire for privacy and control in a highly invasive environment. 2. Online communities and speculation. Social media and discussion forums became incubators for theories. Every detail, from the lone footprint to the silent dog, was dissected and debated. While some theories were grounded in logic, others leaned toward sensationalism. The case became a canvas for collective curiosity, grief, and fear, with facts often intertwined with speculation. 3. Conspiracy and misinformation. The absence of clear answers allowed conspiracy theories to flourish. Some questioned foul play despite official statements ruling it out. Others suggested environmental hazards or abduction. Each hypothesis spread rapidly, illustrating how gaps in official information can inadvertently fuel misinformation and suspicion. 4. Community reaction. Locally, the disappearance unsettled the community deeply. Residents expressed confusion, concern, and empathy, while also grappling with their own questions about safety, supervision, and the environment. This collective anxiety mirrored broader public sentiment online, where curiosity and concern intersected. 5. The power of silence. The family's refusal to speak publicly, though understandable, amplified intrigue. In true crime narratives, silence often becomes as compelling as confession, leaving gaps that the human mind seeks to fill. The case demonstrates the delicate balance between respecting privacy and the public's desire for answers. Through media coverage, online speculation, and public discourse, the mystery of Gus Lamont's disappearance evolved into a shared cultural experience, a story shaped as much by facts as by perception, silence, and imagination. As the investigation into Gus Lamont's disappearance progressed, experts from multiple disciplines weighed in, offering measured perspectives that illuminate both the challenges and unanswered questions surrounding the case. 1. Search and rescue specialists. Professionals emphasized the complexity of remote terrain like Oak Park Station. Vast, uneven landscapes with dense vegetation and isolated tracks make early search efforts extremely difficult. Experts noted that the initial 2-column search radius, while standard procedure, may have underestimated a child's mobility. In similar cases, grid-based searches extending well beyond the immediate vicinity often yield better results, particularly in expansive rural properties. 2. Terrain and survivability. Experts analysts in child survivability in rural environments highlight key factors: energy expenditure, exposure, and hydration. A young child, even energetic, can only traverse limited distances before fatigue or environmental hazards impose limits. Wind, temperature variations, and terrain obstacles, such as steep sand mounds or dense undergrowth, can obscure movement and footprints, potentially explaining why so little evidence was discovered. 3. Behavioral psychology and family dynamics. Behavioral psychologists stress that the reactions of caregivers in high-stress situations can reveal patterns without implying guilt. In Gus's case, the family's measured, sometimes hostile responses to media intrusion may reflect shock, grief, or a desire for control, rather than culpability. Experts caution against reading behaviour as evidence. Rather, it provides context for understanding human responses to trauma and public intrusion. 4. Forensic analysts and evidence review. Forensic investigators noted the scarcity of physical evidence, one footprint, lack of clothing, and no personal effects, as both a challenge and a clue. While limited evidence complicates reconstruction, it also underscores the importance of methodical documentation, advanced imaging, and careful review of drone and aerial footage. Peer reviews of search strategies, as conducted in this case, help identify overlooked opportunities and refine future operations. 5. Lessons from similar cases. Comparisons to analogous disappearances reinforce patterns. In some cases, children have been found hidden, transported inadvertently, or trapped in unexpected locations. Experts emphasize that early assumptions, such as wandering off alone or abduction, must remain hypotheses, not conclusions. Every decision in the first hours and days of a disappearance significantly affects outcome probabilities. In synthesizing these perspectives, it becomes clear that the Gus Lamont case is as much a study in procedural challenge as it is a human tragedy. The interplay of remote geography, limited evidence, family dynamics, and investigative decisions creates a complex puzzle where even the most sophisticated expertise faces inherent uncertainty. The wind drifts across Oak Park Station, rustling the sparse trees and stirring up clouds of red dust from the worn dirt roads. Silence dominates the landscape, punctuated only by the faint creak of gates swinging in the breeze. Here, where a young boy once played, absence has left a heavy shadow. Every mound of sand, every dam, every stretch of open terrain serves as a reminder of the uncertainty that continues to grip this remote corner of South Australia. Despite exhaustive searches, expert analyses, and countless hours of investigation, Gus Lamont remains missing. Footprints fade into dust. Clues remain sparse. Questions linger in the air like the wind across the plains. Was he hidden or lost? Did he wander? Was there an unseen hand guiding events? Or did nature itself play a cruel role? Each theory holds fragments of possibility, yet no answer fits neatly. The human cost is undeniable. A family lives with a void that cannot be measured, a community mourns a child whose laughter is now only memory, and investigators face the weight of unresolved mystery. Silence dominates where answers should be, and as time passes, the urgency does not fade. It sharpens, urging reflection, vigilance, and hope. For those of us who watch, analyse, and remember, this is a call, not just to curiosity, but to responsibility, to seek truth, to honour the missing, and to ensure that the story is not forgotten, buried beneath the dust and the passing days. If you care about truth, justice, and the people still waiting for answers, do not let this story fade. Like, share, subscribe, and leave your thoughts below. Because truth doesn't disappear, it hides, waiting for someone brave enough to find it.